Yo, what is up, my people? It is Barack Lesnar coming to you with my return video, my first video on my own uh, in a year, almost two. I took a break, but I love fantasy basketball. I never stopped playing, and I never stopped thinking about you guys and the community I was able to build here. And it was hard to just walk away completely. So I am back, like the sellout that I am, and no hat. I always wore a hat. I'm balding, but you know what? I'm gonna accept it. It is what it is. So here, this is what my hairline looks like. It's awful. This is what awaits you in the future. I will ask. I need your guys' support more than ever. I want to make this content, but I need all of the support that you can give me. Um, if that's sharing a video, just hopping on and watching, liking, engaging, all of those small things really add up. I want to build a community. I want to put in the work. But I ask of you to help me build this community. A lot of you, especially the ones that have taken the advice that I've given you in the past and applied it. And some of you have won money. Some of you have won your league. Some of you have won your league multiple years following my guidance. So all I ask is for your support, whether that's smashing that like button for me, leaving a comment, just engaging, sharing this video, letting your friends know, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about. Let's help me build this channel up into something monstrous that you helped me build. You've helped me get it to this point. I want to see how far I can get it. So one of the things I've done for this season, I got online. I started analyzing the numbers. I started figuring out how can I put together a resource that I can share with the people that follow my page that'll help them dominate this fantasy basketball season, something that you can have with you that you can use as a resource when you're in your draft. Now, keep in mind, some of this information is going to age as we get closer to the draft. I will make updates to it, but it's very resource intensive to make those changes because I do use Claude. It almost programs it like a software developer. So making changes uses a lot of those resources. So I'll do my best. But some things that recently happened, for example, Fred VanVleet might miss the entire season. You have Tyler Hero, who also had surgery and is going to miss a few months. And these are players that are on this guide higher than they would be had it not been for those injuries. So one of the benefits of drafting this early is the fact that you can get some really sweet deals before things kind of average out and are based more on how people are drafting. You can get some great sleepers, but the downside is, again, you might draft a guy like Tyler Hero or Fred VanVleet only to find out they're not even going to play this season because you drafted too early. So that is the trade-off. If you are not familiar with this channel, I really like to focus on specifically categories. I'm okay at points formats. It's just not as fun for me. And I think my strategy really lends itself to categories, not rotisserie, specifically categories. I teach you how I punt, how I build my teams. And even if I'm drafting from 12, I can still put together a very strong team that can compete with almost anyone. And if you're asking what credibility do you have, I know it may be a little hard to see, but I have a 955 diamond rating on Yahoo with a 66.2 win percentage and almost 1,600 career wins. I've won 68 trophies. So I've had a lot of success in fantasy basketball, top 1 percentile results. And I've been a diamond tier 11 different times. So that's over a decade of being in the 1 percentile. And I share all of my techniques. I share all of my secrets. There's nothing that I do not share. And then I will play against you and still put up a great fight. So that's why I like this channel. That's why I like sharing this information, because I think it can really help you. So what I want to do today as an introductory video with me coming back is share a little bit of this guide, maybe the first few players, and how I set up this guide. It has a few different resources in it, including sleepers I'm targeting, and also we've labeled rookies as well. I do have this guide for sale for $10. Like I said, if you want to support the work that I am doing, even just paying the $10 for this guide, I'll share a lot of the information on this channel, but not only supports me, but you'll also have it there as a resource that you can use. And then you could go plug this in to Claude or Chat GPT and make yourself a string. And that's something I want to do. I want to teach you how to use these AI tools. I think that's going to be the differentiator between my channel and a lot of other channels. We're going to hop on and figure out how can we use these large language models? How can we use Chat GPT? How can we use Claude to figure out players that are undervalued, figure out players on the waiver wire worthy of our attention, maybe figure out players that are trending upward. There's a lot of features that you can use that can really lend itself to fantasy basketball. Fantasy basketball is essentially data, interpreting data, data analysis, and these large language models are tremendous at that. And I really think this is going to be the future of fantasy basketball. And if you don't use these tools, you'll be at a disadvantage. So I want to be one of the pioneers of using these tools, feeding it a bunch of data, and coming up with smart conclusions that we can apply to our team and just make the most competitive teams ever. This guide isn't a full comprehensive guide. I don't rank everyone. There's actually players that will not appear on this guide, and that's because truthfully, that's my way of letting you know chances are I won't be drafting that player. I did try to include as many players as possible, and I try to rank them by their current at draft position for diamond tier leagues. Those numbers are going to change as we get closer to the season, but the idea was that you should be able to go down this list and quickly identify players that would be strong for your team, identify what position they are on Yahoo, identify what their ownership percentage is, and why I feel they fit my Barack Lesnar Hoops fantasy basketball strategy, which we'll get a little more into in a moment. But I think the most valuable resource is the fact that I do have the playoff schedule right here in this chart for you. So when you're drafting a player, let's say Nikola Jokic, you immediately can see that if your playoffs are week 21 to 23, you only have 9 games. And then the consensus ends up being the average. So let's say you don't know the exact playoff schedule, but it falls within one of those 3. You can quickly look here and identify. Yellow means they're going to have a pretty average playoff schedule. If it says green, that means they have one of the strongest playoff schedules. And now you can target sleeper players or maybe even starter players with really strong playoff schedules. And you can identify that immediately. So the first player on my list, of course, is going to be Nikola Jokic. I think that's a given, but do keep in mind that week 21 through 23, he only has 9 games. With Nikola Jokic, it's almost always worth that gamble just because he's so productive that he can still outproduce anyone else playing 4 games in only 3 games, but it's still a consideration that you should make. Victor Wembanyama, for example, plays 11 games, weeks 21 to 23. So that's a significant difference in production. So you probably won't pick Wemby over Jokic in most situations, but it is something to consider. Giannis Antetokounmpo is next on the list. You have Damian Lillard, got injured, was traded away, or was waived, is now with the Blazers. Wishing him a speedy recovery. And Giannis Antetokounmpo is really primed to produce this season, especially they're going to be playing him more at point guard, which means at some point he might also get point guard eligibility. And then that point guard, power forward, center eligibility would be incredibly valuable. So he has a decent playoff schedule. Then I have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander next on the list. And honestly, it's a little difficult for me to know if I would put Giannis before Shai. I think I would pick Shai first. What's holding Shai back a little bit is the fact that if you're drafting weeks 19, 20, and 21, he only plays 9 games. So add to that the fact that the Thunder are such a strong team that they may already be resting their star players at that point if they're having a strong season. That makes him slightly riskier of a pick. He's going to get you to the playoffs, no doubt about it. But will he be as effective in the playoffs with this schedule and the success that the Thunder are likely to have as defending champions? That remains to be seen. Luka Doncic, point guard, shooting guard eligibility. He's right now at an ADP of about 4.5. He's somebody that can put up volume numbers, but he's going to hurt your turnovers, and he's can hurt your free throw percentage with the volume that he takes. And with my strategy, I like to protect turnovers. So that makes someone like Shea, makes me put him ahead of Luka just by a little bit. But also, Luka Doncic really slimmed down, got in great shape, played amazing in Europe. And historically speaking, those players that have those during the offseason are playing in tournaments and do really well, that tends to carry over really well into the NBA season. So Luka Doncic, I would not be surprised if he ends up being the #1 ranked player. He has that sort of potential, but he also has the potential of really hurting your turnovers, really hurting your volume, your percentages. It remains to be seen. I think 4 is a good spot for him. Anthony Edwards, I have next on the list. And Anthony Edwards is efficient, can put up volume points, gets a bunch of threes, and gets a bunch of steals. That combination of steals and threes fits my strategy really, really well. I love to be dominant in steals. I love to be dominant in blocks. I want to protect my turnovers, and I will sacrifice assists if it means that I can protect my turnovers. So I like to target players that have a strong assist to turnover ratio. So players that can still get me a lot of assists without getting turnovers. And what ends up happening is you become very hard to beat if you can get to the middle of your league in assists while being one of the bottom teams as far as turnovers. And then when you're still strong at steals, when you're still strong at blocks, when you're still strong at threes, and you manage to protect the percentages, your team is so complete that almost from any angle somebody wants to attack you, it becomes very hard to beat you, especially if you are good at streaming and kind of making up for those holes in your defenses. Between streaming, a smart streaming strategy, and my build strategy of punting, I'd say light punt on assist. Points are nice, but I think it's something else that you can sacrifice because so many people focus directly on points. Okay. Depends on my build. If I have bigs that get me a lot of threes and blocks, then I might also neglect rebounds, or I may target guards that get a high amount of rebounds to kind of offset the low rebound, shot blocking, 3-point bigs. Players like Jaren Jackson Jr., who's on this list as well. Players like Brook Lopez, players like Miles Turner, that can get you those stats, which historically speaking, threes and blocks have traditionally been opposite categories in the sense that big men that got you the blocks didn't take threes. So for much of league history, there was a seesaw where it was you either focus on your threes or you focus on your blocks, but it's hard to focus on both. But unicorns have come into the game that can get you a ton of blocks, like Chet, like Wemby, like Miles Turner. They can get you a ton of blocks. They can get you a ton of threes, and the league is going in that direction. And these unicorns not only help your fantasy teams, but they also help teams in the league, which is why some of the most successful teams we've had in the past decade had some variation of a stretch big, because it just really changes the game when your big man that can play defense is also stretching the offense with 3-point making ability. So sorry to go on a tangent, but the point is that players that can get you a lot of threes and blocks kind of cancels out that seesaw effect. And historically speaking, the shot blocking bigs also hurt your free throw percentage. But with these 3-point shooting big men, they also happen to help your free throw percentage because they're good shooters. So naturally, logically, they are also decent free throw percentage shooters. So when you can get bigs that can get you threes, they can get you a high free throw percentage, and they can get you blocks while also keeping the turnovers low, that strategy is so hard to beat. Those players are worth their weight in gold. If you manage to get 4 or 5 of those players, just trust me, at some point in that season, somebody's going to send you a crazy trade offer because you've taken some of the most crucial key players and you've stacked them on your team, and your team becomes so hard to beat. Evan Mobley's another one of those players. So just going further down the list, I just want to stop at the bottom of this page, and I'll have a link to this guide if you want to purchase it, get full access to it. And I'll make other videos related to this guide as well. Cade Cunningham had a very strong season last season, and people are predicting a big jump, which I don't think is crazy to think. I think the Detroit Pistons went from one of the worst teams in the league and took a massive jump last season, and a lot of that had to do with the play of Cade Cunningham. The Pistons kind of remind me a little bit of the Thunder, where they were bad until they got it together, and then all the key pieces kind of grew together and gave them a really strong team. So Cade Cunningham has the ability to produce across the board. In the past, he kind of hurt your turnovers, wasn't a guy that got you a bunch of steals and blocks. But I think this is a good spot for him in the top 10, probably his first time in the top 10, probably won't be his last, assuming he can stay healthy. Speaking of staying healthy, you have Anthony Davis up next on my draft board. And Anthony Davis on the Dallas Mavericks produced like a demon when he was on the court. The problem was he got injured right away. And Anthony Davis historically has been very injury prone. When he plays, he's a top one player. He can put a production comparable to Nikola Jokic. The issue is he is very often injured. He is very often going to the back of the locker room with injuries. So by picking him, you're taking a huge risk, but he is the sort of risk that you take when maybe you're pick number 10 or 11 and Anthony Davis is there, because he has that sleeper potential to put top one production. That's when you have to take those sort of swings for the fences. But if you have a top 5 pick, there are much safer picks than Anthony Davis. Domantas Sabonis, I have him up next. He's another guy. It's very similar to Nikola Jokic that can produce across the board. The problem is he is not the free throw shooter that Nikola Jokic is. He's not the scorer that Nikola Jokic is. He does everything just a little bit worse than Nikola Jokic, which is why you can normally get him in the teens. You probably will have to target him in the top 10 this season. He has an ADP of about 9.3, at least at the time I was gathering this data. That may have gone down. That may have gone up since then. But at worst, you're going to need to use a top 15 pick on him. So if you want him, that's where you're going to have to target him. Trae Young, it's a player that doesn't really fit my build per se, but I'm not saying that I wouldn't draft him. Sometimes I like to be contrarian and go a little bit against my build. He is a volume engine, just like Luka. He's going to get you a bunch of points. He's going to get you a bunch of assists. He's also going to get you a bunch of turnovers. He's going to get you threes, but he's not going to be super efficient. His free throw percentage is okay. He's not going to get you a ton of steals. He's not going to get you any blocks. He's not going to get you any rebounds. So there are areas in which he really hurts you. But when he is on fire, he's one of the most productive volume players in the NBA. Very similar to, I'd say, a James Harden in his prime. And speaking of which, even though he is not on this list, oversight definitely should be on this list. But James Harden on the Clippers, with the playoff schedule that the Clippers have one of the best playoff schedules this season. So if you can load up on Clippers players, you're going to have a huge advantage when it comes to the fantasy basketball playoffs. And even though James Harden is aging, he's getting up there, he's old, he can still produce, and I think he's still going to have the opportunity to produce. He might not score much more than 18 points per game, but he's capable of getting you double-digit assists. He's capable of getting you a bunch of free throws. He's an efficient free throw shooter. He can get you steals when he's focused defensively, which he might be. He can even get you some blocks. He can get you a lot of turnovers, but the assist-to-turnover ratio is really strong. Again, I don't know why he is not on this list, so I apologize for that. I'm going to make sure that that gets fixed immediately, because I would definitely have him in the top 15, I'd say at worst, maybe even higher. The guy has top 5 potential when he's on. You're gambling with his age, which is why he's falling in the teens, but the upside really is there for him to help you. Especially if you could partner like Domantas Sabonis. If you do that snake draft where you draft last and then you draft first the next round, if you could grab a Harden and a Sabonis, that sort of production can be hard to beat. Karl Anthony Towns is another player that has that top 1 potential. He's more injury prone than he's been in the past. He's not the shot blocker he was in the past, but he has the ability on occasion to get you blocks. He can rebound. He can get you very efficient scoring. He can get you threes with his efficient scoring, and he gets you a great free throw percentage, and he doesn't turn the ball over that much, and he has the ability to get assists. So he's a player that fits my strategy perfectly. So I might actually target him in that top 8 range, because he has that sort of potential, and he was a great fit on that New York Knicks team. I don't think it's a coincidence the Knicks had their best season in a very long time, coinciding with Karl Anthony Towns joining that team. I think he's a player I've always said got way too much hate for how productive and how good he is. He hasn't been in ideal situations, and his very first season in New York City, a very strong team, not going to lie, it's not all him, but he fit there like a puzzle piece, and the Knicks had a very strong season. And then we're going to finish this list. I got Devin Booker up next. Devin Booker on the Phoenix Suns. You have Kevin Durant is gone. Bradley Beal is gone. But now you have Jalen Green coming in, and he's going to get a lot of usage. But Devin Booker is still should end up ahead as far as usage, touches, shots. Jalen Green is a little bit of a black hole offensively, but I think he's maturing, and I think he'll do better. Devin Booker, I don't know. I'm always iffy about him, even though he does fit my strategy. He's a volume scorer that can do so efficiently, can get you threes. But I just tend to find other players more appealing. I don't know what it is. As far as playoffs, if you are weeks 20 to 22, he has 12 games. Okay. Actually, I'm sorry. He has 10 games. He has 12 games if you're weeks 19 to 21. So if those are your playoff schedule, if you focus and you grab Karl Anthony Towns and you also grab Devin Booker, they both have 12 games. So you're really stacking the odds against your opponent, especially if they're not focusing on playoff scheduling when they're drafting, which is an advantage you'll have by buying this guide. Then we have Steph Curry. Steph Curry's getting up there in age, but has a strong playoff schedule if you play week 20 to 22 with 12 games. With his advanced age, though, it's not a given. Around that time, if the team is doing poorly, they might rest him. And if the team is doing very well, they might rest him. The best scenario for him would be if the team is fighting for a playoff spot and he's forced to play as much as possible. Then having Steph Curry for 12 games during those playoff weeks would be a massive advantage. So Steph Curry is somebody who's probably right now a little underrated because of his advanced age and the fact that he struggled a little bit last season. We kind of saw him lose half a step, and I think that's concerning some people. But this guy has proven us wrong before, and I think he can do it again. I think there's still some juice in the tank for Steph Curry. Tyrese Maxey is another very strong target around the late teens. This is a guy that can score. This is a guy that can get you steals. He puts up numbers across the board, and his assist to turnover ratio is decently strong. The playoff schedule averages 11 games, weeks 19 through weeks 23. So not a bad playoff schedule there. No red, which means 9 or less games, none of those. And he's on a team with very injury-prone Joel Embiid, very injury-prone Paul George, which means he's likely going to have very high usage and the ability to produce a lot of numbers. Now, the main concern will be his health. And if the 76ers are really bad again, then he might get shut down when you need him most. So that is something to consider when drafting anyone on the 76ers, as the huge question marks around how good they will be. Jalen Williams, I think, is very underrated. He's a 9 category just gem that performs across the board, can do everything and does it well, doesn't hurt you in any specific area. The only concern with Jalen Williams that I have is the 9 games, just like Shea. That could really end up hurting you, especially if he's also resting because the Thunder are successful. So that gives me a little bit of pause. So proceed with caution. Evan Mobley, Cleveland Cavaliers. This is a guy that can get you steals, a bunch of blocks. He's only getting better. He's in great shape. The Cavaliers were amazing. They didn't show up in the playoffs like people expected them to, but overall, he is a player that is trending up, still very young, very productive. Also has a poor playoff schedule of only 9 games, weeks 19 to 21. So that is something that you will have to consider if you are drafting him and your playoff schedules fall within those weeks. Kevin Durant. So Kevin Durant on the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets have a very strong playoff schedule. If you're playing weeks 21 to 23, he plays 12 games. Will he play all of those games? That remains to be seen. His availability is questionable in his advanced age. When he plays, he's still one of the best fantasy basketball players there is, but he's probably going to miss 20 to 30 games at least, and you don't want those to fall during the fantasy basketball playoffs. They just lost their point guard too, so it makes it hard to know how well the Rockets will do this season because Fred VanVleet, all things considered, is a champion and a very strong point guard and really kept that ship steady, and he's no longer available. Their guard play right now, I think, is a little thin, so that could really end up impacting the team and Kevin Durant's availability as the season goes on. Next up, I have Jalen Brunson with the New York Knicks. He's another player that's a very strong producer. And again, if you manage to grab him, Karl Anthony Towns, those 12 games during weeks 19 to 21 could be crucial. But just like Karl Anthony Towns, if your playoff schedule is week 21 to 23, they only play 9 games. So make sure you're drafting them that you know when your fantasy basketball playoffs are, because that's a drastic difference in their value for your team. All right, and just a few more that we're going to discuss. Donovan Mitchell, another guy that can score, can get you steals, can get you threes, can produce across the board. Very strong point guard, and I like to team him with other strong point guards like a Tyrese Maxey, Devin Booker. I love pairing just those super productive motor engine players that just help you across the board, especially at the point guard position. I preach to you that you should draft 4 to 5 point guards and 4 to 5 centers because those are the most valuable players. And if you could get a monopoly on very strong point guards or very strong centers, that puts you in a great position for leveraging them later for trades where you end up getting the better half of the trade. Maybe even some very strong 2-for-1 trades. Alperen Şengün has an opportunity to produce big numbers, 12 games, weeks 21 to 23. Also playing with Kevin Durant, the amount of attention that Kevin Durant is going to draw away from Alperen Şengün should really help him. Alperen Şengün, another player that had a very strong offseason playing in Europe. So I'm excited to see what he does. He's a guy that I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up putting top 15 numbers, but he can also be inefficient. He can also turn over the ball a lot. He's not going to get you a bunch of steals and blocks, which does limit his upside some. So that's something to consider. Chet Holmgren is a guy that's going to get you blocks, is a guy that's going to get you 3-pointers, and he's going to do it quickly. The problem with Chet is he is very brittle, and we worry about his health. The other thing that we worry is about that 9-game schedule, and even the other 2 weeks aren't great. It's a very poor schedule overall for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Scotty Barnes, I'd say 25 to 26. If you can grab him there, he's worth it because he has top 10 upside. He's a guy that can produce in almost every single category, and he's only getting better. I can see him having a Giannis-like leap. He has the ability to get assists. He can get rebounds. He can score. He can get steals. He can get blocks. I think he's going to become more efficient as he ages. He's going to control his turnovers. And he's on a Toronto Raptors team that now has Brandon Ingram. So that's somebody that can help him offensively. You have RJ Barrett, somebody else that can draw some attention from him. So he's in a situation to be a Swiss Army knife, a really strong glue player. And he's somebody that you can fit in almost any kind of build that you want to do because of his across the board production. So he has a lot of upside. If he can remain healthy, he's somebody I would be very interested in having on my team. His ADP is around that 25 to 30 range, and he has a decent playoff schedule as well. So target him. Amen Thompson on the Houston Rockets had a huge second season, took a huge leap. And now if you want him, you're probably going to have to burn a top 30 pick. But there are some benefits. He can get steals. He can get rebounds. He can get assists. He can score. He's a super athlete. and he's just scratching the surface. Year 3 is when a lot of players take that big leap. So it would not be shocking to see him take that big leap, especially if he's going to be playing more point guard with Fred VanVleet being injured, which is a huge possibility. Point guard, shooting guard, small forward eligibility is lovely. I love that sort of versatility in positions. It makes for really strong teams, especially when you stack players like that. And again, 12 games, week 21 through 23. So if you pair him with a few other guys with those 12-game weeks, you might be a juggernaut that's just too hard to defeat. This is the time to start putting thought into that. Jaylen Brown will also cost you a top 30 pick. I'm not a huge Jaylen Brown targeter. He doesn't have the sort of numbers that I like. He gets more turnovers for the assist that he gets than I'd care for. His free throw percentage isn't elite. He's a good volume scorer, but he doesn't excite me, so I tend not to draft him. But with the injury to Jason Tatum, the opportunity is there for him to get a lot more usage, a lot more touches, but also the opportunity is there for the Celtics to struggle and this guy not to be playing during the fantasy basketball playoffs. I don't know how much I'll be targeting him, but if you want him, I would target him around that top 30 range. De'Aaron Fox, we saw him go off to a very strong start when he was traded to the San Antonio Spurs, but then unfortunately they lost Wemby with those blood clots. And then De'Aaron Fox ended up having surgery and missing the remainder of the season because they knew it was a lost season. But now, this season, him playing with Wemby, we saw how well Chris Paul and Wemby did. I think we might see an even deadlier version of that with De'Aaron Fox and Wemby. I love De'Aaron Fox's. He has the same ability to produce as guys that go in the top 10 to 20. He comes with a few more caveats. He tends to hurt your free throw percentage. His turnovers, he can be out of control at times. He's pretty efficient of a scorer. He doesn't get as many threes as some of the other guys you're going to find, but I think he has as much upside as almost any point guard in the NBA, and I would not be shocked to see him beat his ADP. If you can grab him in that 30 to 35 range, he's somebody you can really build around. And as far as playoff schedule, they have a pretty decent playoff schedule. With 11 games, 10 games, and 11 games, depending on which playoff schedule format your league has. Pascal Siakam is going to have an opportunity to really step up. You can grab him around that 30 to 35 range. You have the injury to Tyrese Halliburton taking him out for the whole season. And then you also have Miles Turner gone, no longer with the Pacers. That means that is a lot of usage, and that is a huge amount of responsibility that Pascal Siakam will have the opportunity to step into. He's a guy that can really put up volume numbers for you. I don't think he's a guy that's going to get you a ton of steals. He's not going to get you a ton of blocks. He's going to be turnover prone. At times, his efficiency might suffer, but he can put up numbers in a hurry. And if you just need a strong engine, a strong guy that you'll build around and maybe soften some of the weaker areas, he can really produce in a hurry. And I wouldn't be shocked to see him produce a top 20 position when you have an ADP of 31.3. So somebody to consider. Franz Wagner, another player that did really well in Europe. This guy produces across the board, does not hurt you in any specific areas, helps you a little bit in almost every single area. He's not going to wow you, but he's about as good of a Swiss Army knife as you can find, and very strong playoff schedule, all things considered. 11 games, and then 12 games if you're playing weeks 21 to 23. So again, you pair him with Kevin Durant, you pair him with Alperen Şengün, you pair him with Eamon Thompson, or you pair him with some of these other players playing 12 games, you might be really hard to overcome, especially if you have a guy that went and grabbed Karl Anthony Towns, Nikola Jokic, and now has multiple players only playing 9 games. Before you know it, you're playing 10 more games than your opponent, and they have no possible way of beating you, especially once you stream in a couple of extra games. This season, focus on your playoff schedule. Focus on players with upside. Focus on players with good situations. By thinking of April, today, and September, that is how you win. The last player we're going to discuss, so we can wrap this video up for today, is Bam Adebayo. His ownership percentage, of course, it's going to be high, and he's somebody that you can grab in the 30 plus range. Bam Adebayo has an average playoff schedule with 10 games, regardless if it's week 19 to 21, 20 to 22, or 21 to 23. But Bam Adebayo is a big that can get you assists, he can get you rebounds, he can score, he can be efficient from the field. His free throw percentage has improved some. It's average at best. Maybe he can improve there. That would significantly raise his value. He can be pretty turnover prone for a big, but he does get you assists from the big man position, which is valuable. And on a Miami Heat team that no longer has Jimmy Butler, it might, and Tyler Hero is also gone for the first few months of the season. That opens up for Bam Adebayo to have a lot of usage, a lot of opportunity, and with an ADP a lot lower than it's been historically. Normally, you would have to draft him in the top 21, 22, 25. Now, if you could grab him at 35, that's a very advantageous position with a lot of upside for him to beat that ADP. So I'm just going to thumb through a few more of these pages. You could see here that I have the rookies marked as well. We have the playoff schedules for everybody else. And yeah, man, under player, I have a section with undervalued players based on ADP. And if you want to go and pause it and read it, go ahead. If that makes you feel good, I'm not going to be mad at you. But if you want to support me doing this sort of work and other resources and making these videos, then do me a favor, go to the link in the description and buy the guide. It helps me out a lot. I already put money into making the guide. Just the service to deliver the guides cost me $80 for this month. So if I can at least cover that, then hey, I broke even. If not, thank you so much for watching. Again, smash that like button for me. Leave a comment, leave a share, leave your feedback, good or bad. I really value it. I cherish it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be tuning in again soon. You take care.